Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And today's, like many days, I like to do combat tutorials, and today is a combat tutorial for Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and we're going to be covering the Druid. I tried covering the Druid last week. It didn't go down too well. I'm going to improve that. Trust me, it will be an improvement. For those of you who don't know too much about Druids, they are basically your tree huggers. They are gifted with supernatural abilities either from birth or through some sort of gift that has been passed on to them, and they draw their magic from nature. Now, for those of you who do not understand why Druids don't get an animal companion or some sort of animal that follows them around and has a pet like the Ranger or Beastmaster has, I can't explain that. You'll have to go and talk to the designers of the game. I know there's a lot of people who find that frustrating, but that's not really the discussion for today. We're going to go straight to the character sheet that we'll be using for today. I've drawn this from the Dungeons & Dragons website. It's available for level 1 through to level 10 for those of you who are unsure where I've got it from, so you can get it at different levels. It's pre-made. This is for a human druid, level 1. Background is the folk hero, so you can use rustic hospitality. Allows you to rest, hide and recuperate with commoners, provided you haven't done anything to scare them off. You can select a faction. This particular faction is the Emerald Enclave. It's really around wilderness, survival, that sort of thing. Personality traits, ideals, bonds and flaws are also included, but we're doing combat today rather than that sort of thing. Your druid features is druidic. This is a language that you can speak. It allows you to hide messages so that only a druid can understand or see that message. Now you can make a perception check or a wisdom check, DC 15, to try to find out the presence of a druidic message, but you won't be able to understand it because you require magic to do that, and if you don't have magic to actually decipher it, it's not going to work. Druids are spellcasters. They have cantrips, they prepare spells, they cast spells, and you have a bunch of, ritual casting, which means you can spend 10 minutes plus the level of the spell in minutes to actually cast that spell as a ritual, and it won't burn up a spell slot, and you don't have very many spell slots, so being able to actually conserve those is a good thing. You have a spell focus. You can pretty much pick anything you like, but this one has a wand for this purpose. Your armor class is 13 because you're wearing leather armor. The sort of armor that you can be proficient with is covered in the player's handbook. But essentially, the only thing you can really wear has to be anything that's not made of metal. As long as your light armor, your medium armor, and your shields are not made of metal, you're all good. Now, you'll notice the hit points are 17 on the character sheet. That's an error. It should read 10. That is 8 plus your Constitution modifier at level 1. And the player's handbook explains how to level up from there on. Speed is 30 feet, pretty low strength. Most of your abilities are drawn from wisdom, so you have a high wisdom of 16 with a modifier of +3, which is going to be important later on. Your weapons that you are proficient with are clubs, daggers, darts, javelins, maces, the quarterstaff, scimitar, sickle, the sling, and the spear, which we probably won't necessarily use today. I want to sort of use spells because that's the hardest part of using a character that's a druid. If you're using weapons, I feel like you're doing something wrong. Anyway, well, not completely wrong. Languages are common, draconic, and druidic. And then now it has included the ability to use two-weapon fighting as a bonus action. Any character, any class can do this. There are just some adjustments to the amount of damage you do on the attack you make with your bonus action. You won't be adding your ability modifier in terms of damage. It's only the damage dice that you'll use. Otherwise, everything is exactly the same as making any sort of attack. Your spell casting attributes, that's your DCs, are 13, and your attack modifier is a +5. So we've got a fairly good idea of the gist of our character. The cantrips you get are only going to get 2. You don't get a lot of cantrips as a druid, which I know sort of sucks. But so we've got Druid Craft, Thorn Whip, which I will explain and demonstrate today as best I can. And our first level spells are Detect Magic. I would suggest casting that as a ritual spell rather than using your slots. Fairy Fire, Healing Word, Thunder Wave. We're going to demonstrate Fairy Fire, Healing Word, and Thunder Wave. I'm not going to worry too much about Detect Magic. The spell slots read on the character sheet 3, but at level 1 you should only have 2 slots. So you can cast 2 spells at first level, and that's it when you're level 1. Okay, so that's all of the basics regarding the character sheet. Let us go to our opening scene. And of course, last time I failed to make sure that it was going to show up for everybody else. So this time I'm jumping over. How's it going, everybody? Making sure that YouTube is presenting you with a grid and miniatures and dice and a whiteboard. That should all be there, and there's a pen, so I'm all ready to go. Nothing's going to get messed up today. Trust me, I've got it under control, guys. It's all good. Okay, so now that that's coming through, we're going to go through the basics of describing our scene and get into some combat. Okay, so our druid is exploring an ancient ruin. It's a temple inside a forested area. In front of our druid is a whole lot of broken statues. A lot of these statues look like some sort of reptilian, scaly creature, maybe some sort of Yanti. There is a pool of water in front of the ruins, which has what looks like some sort of radiating blue light coming from it. And there's the sound of birds sort of chirping as you normally would expect in a forested area. Now, our druid is exploring on their own, and I will reiterate, as I always do, I'm only doing this for the purpose of making the whole process of explaining the druid simple. You should not do this. You should never go off on your own without the party. I'm just doing this for the purpose of this demonstration. And our druid can hear what seems like a strange bird noise. Now we can make what's called a nature check or a skill check to try to determine the nature of that bird. Now I'm going to grab a 20-sided dice. I'm going to roll my 20-sided dice, and I'm going to add my nature skill modifier, which is only a +2. So we roll our 20-sided dice. I rolled a 12. I'm going to add 2 to that, is 14. And as far as our druid is concerned, it seems like that. Now remember, a DC of 10 would be easy, and a DC of 15 is medium. So medium difficulty with something like this. And I'm going to say that it's actually going to be quite difficult to sort of determine exactly what's going on, but it's good enough for checking out what's going on in this situation. What is taking place is our druid was not aware that there is a kenku. This is like a bird creature hiding in the bushes, and it's mimicking a bird to sort of disguise what's going on. Basically, the kenku is setting up an ambush. Our druid didn't know this, but can hear what seems like a strange noise. Now, by making an insight check or a perception check, I've made what is essentially a nature check. The bird doesn't sound quite right, 14. We're going to say it's roughly in that. What I'm going to allow our druid to do is make an insight check to see if they can figure out if they understand that there's some sort of creature mimicking the sound of a bird. So we'll grab our 20-sided dice again. So we made a nature check. Now we're making an insight check, which is a wisdom check. Very, very simple. Roll our dice. We've got a decent wisdom for this wisdom and insight check for this character. So I rolled an 11. I'm going to add our insight. And the insight is a +5. So 11 plus 5 is 16. 16 is equal to or greater than the DC required to figure out that the kenku is using what's called a feature Mimicry. So all I needed to do was get a 14 or higher, which I have succeeded in doing. That means that our Druid knows there's some sort of creature around mimicking the sound of a bird. Now that doesn't mean that they will be able to figure out that there's a kenku hiding in the bushes over here, but they know there's something out and off. Our kenku isn't going to allow that to phase them. They're still going to make their take their opportunity to make a stealth check to try to hide and get surprise on our Druid for the opening scene. So I'll grab a 20-sided dice for our kenku. We're going to make a stealth check. I'm going to roll my 20-sided dice. I got a 2. It's not very good. It's very, very low. And we add our stealth modifier. Unfortunately, it's only a +5. So 2 + 5 is 7. 7, I'm going to compare that with the passive perception of our human Druid, because our Druid knows there's something up. The passive perception of our Druid is a 13. So obviously 7 is less than. So what happens is, essentially our Druid can see that there's some bushes rustling over here and can make out what looks like the beak of some sort of creature. So knows there's somebody hiding or something hiding over here. So there's not going to be any surprise from the kenku in the opening round. What we will do is I'm going to have our kenku raise their bow and go to fire an arrow. So I'm going to roll initiative for each one. We'll start off today with our Druid, make an initiative roll. So I roll a 20-sided dice. I rolled a 9. We add our dexterity modifier, which is a +2. So 9 + 2 is 11. There we go. And next we'll roll for the kenku. Grab a 20-sided dice. And we're rolling a 17, which is pretty good. It's not bad at all. We're going to add our dexterity modifier to that for our initiative, which is a +3. It's quite high. So that's 20. The kenku just got a 20. Alright, so that means that low numbers go at the bottom of the initiative order, high numbers at the top of the initiative order, which means the kenku will get to go first, but there's no surprise involved. Okay, does that make sense? It also means that even though our kenku is hiding in the brush here, our Druid can actually see them, so there won't be any advantage on the first attack that is made, because they can see them moving around in that brush. Remember, something like foliage is not like you're standing behind a wall, which would present basically block line of sight. It's like totally obscured your vision. So I can actually see, or the Druid can actually see the kenku. So there's no advantage involved. All right, so let's put some hit points in here, like so. And our Druid had 10 hit points, if I believe. There we go, it's 10. Our kenku has quite a few more, 13. Ta-da! That's all sorted out. We'll make adjustments to that as we go. Starting at the top of the initiative order, I'm going to use my magnet. I'm going to place it on this side because I realized that you guys probably can't see the magnet on this side of my screen. So it's over here today. So top of the initiative order, our kenku gets to act first. I'm going to have them fire their bow from the bushes. I want them to stay in the bushes because that will give them a +2 to the AC. Basically, it's providing some sort of cover even if they don't get advantage on the attack because they are at least partially seen in some way. Okay, so make your attack. I rolled a 17. I seem to be rolling 17s for the kenku all the time right now. So the attack modifier for the bow is a +5. So 17 + 5 is 22. 22 is greater than and equal to the armor class of the Druid, which is only 13. So it's definitely going to hit. So we roll some damage. Grab a 6-sided dice. I'm going to add +3 for the short bow. Now the range is 80 feet to 320 feet. So at 80 feet I get no disadvantage. If I was shooting beyond 80 feet up to 320 feet, then there would be disadvantage on the attack roll, but that didn't apply. I rolled a 6. Oh, that's a lot of damage. Oh, it's gonna be painful today. So I add 3 to that. That's 9 damage on our Druid, and they have 1 hit point left. Wow. That wasn't very nice. Anyway, that's the first round. I'm leaving the Kenku in the bushes. We're moving down to our Druid, who will take their turn. I'm going to use Thorn Whip as an opening spell so that you can see how it works. I could move 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 right up and engage in melee and use a different weapon if I wanted to, such as the scimitar, but I want to use Thorn Whip so you can see how it operates. It has a range of, I believe it's 30 feet, so I need to make sure I'm within 30 feet of the Kenku, which isn't going to be a problem. So 5, 10, 15. Okay, now I'm only moving 15 because I want to show you the feature of the Thorn Whip as well. So it's an action to use it. I've moved, I'm going to use my action to cast Thorn Whip. It's a cantrip, which means I can cast it as many times as I like, and on any adventuring day I don't use up slots for it. It has a range of 30 feet. It's a melee spell attack. I know we're at range and it doesn't seem to make an awful lot of sense, but that's how it works. So we're going to roll a 20-sided dice. We're going to add a +5 because that's our spell attack modifier. So I rolled a 19, so 19 plus 5 is 24. The armor class on a Kenku is not that high. It's only a 13. They're actually got exactly the same armor class. Now because it's in cover, I added another +2. So 13 plus 2 is 15. Still going to hit. It's still equal to or greater than. So it's going to strike, and I get to do some damage. And I also get to pull the creature towards me if I want to, pull it out of the bushes so it no longer has cover. So I'm going to roll a 6-sided dice. La da 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 da. Roll it dice. So I rolled a 5 on my 6-sided dice for Thorn Whip. I do not add any modifiers to that dice roll. It's a cantrip. You don't add modifiers to this particular cantrip. Okay, so it's just the damage. So I do a grand total of 5. So that means 13 less 5 is 8 hit points on the Kenku that are left. Ta-da! That's that done. And I also get to pull the Kenku out of the bushes 10 feet. 5, 10. So now it's a lot closer to me, and it no longer will benefit from having that cover. And you've seen how Thorn Whip works, which is exactly the whole purpose of this video, right? Well, at least part of it. So let's move on to the next round. So the Kenku is going to take their turn. I think at this point, shooting with a bow doesn't seem to make an awful lot of sense. So what the Kenku is going to do is it's going to use its short sword. I'm going to drop my short bow and draw out my short sword. So dropping the bow, there's no action involved. You can just do it. You can drop as many things as you like, in fact, which makes no sense, I know, but that's just how it works. And then you draw your short sword as an interaction, move up 1 square, and we'll use our short sword to make our attack. So grab a 20-sided dice for our Kenku. I rolled a 20. So a 20 is what is called a critical hit. Man, it's going to be nasty today. I see things are sort of unwinding a little bit in this particular demonstration. So what happens with a 20? It doesn't matter what I add to that 20, it's always going to hit. Not only that, I'm going to do double the number of dice damage. I don't double the modifier for the damage, but I do double the dice I would use for the damage. So I'll grab that, move that out of the way. So I would normally get 1 6-sided dice plus 3. I'm going to get 2 6-sided dice because it's a critical hit. And I get to add plus 3. Don't double the modifier. So I'll roll that. Okay, so that's 3 and 2. So 3 plus 2 is a grand total of 5. And then I add my 3 for my modifier only once. Okay, so that's 8 damage. And there we go. Again, it doesn't kill the Druid, but it does put the Druid on 0 hit points. I didn't plan it. You saw it happen. Okay, so that means our Druid goes down. It's now the Druid's turn. I'm not going to have the Kenku do anything else. It didn't seem to be much point in doing so. Now we need to make death saving throws. When it comes to making a death saving throw, there's a process to doing this. I'm going to use the black dice because that just seems to wreak death, doesn't it? So if I roll this dice, this 20-sided dice, all I need to do is not roll a 1 or anything between 2 and 9, and things aren't looking too bad. But if I roll a 1, that's 2 failures. If I get 3 failures, the character dies. If I get 3 successes, the character is stable. If I roll a 2 to 9 on the 20-sided dice, then I'm going to be getting a failure. If I roll a 10 through to 19, that's 1 success. If I roll a 20 on the dice, and this saving throw is made at the beginning of your turn, not at the middle or the end. If I roll a 20, I get 1 hit point for my Druid, and I can stand back up and continue my turn if I want to. Does that make sense? Certainly, I hope so. So let's roll a dice. Now, what do I add to this dice? You don't add anything unless you have something that will increase your saving throw for a death saving throw. You don't add your Constitution modifier or anything else. Just roll a dice. And I rolled a 4. So that's 1 failure. So we'll mark a cross down here. There we go. Now I could continue with my Kenku to do horrible things to the Druid while it's down. By taking more damage, it's going to be classified as a critical hit because you're within 5 feet, and doing so, if it hits, and it probably will. So let's just do that, eh? I haven't actually killed a character in one of these for a little while, so let's do it today, shall we? Alright, so move that dice out of the way. Now, because the Druid's prone, I get advantage on the attack. I'm using a scimitar. Not only that, if I hit, it's considered a critical hit, which means I get to double the amount of dice I'm doing. Okay, so there's a chance of instantly killing the creature, or the Druid, or there's a chance that if it's a critical, it's going to count as 2 failures anyway. So, roll the dice and let's see what we get. Okay, so I got a 17, so I had advantage. I'm going to add my 5 for the attack, so that's 22. 17 plus 5 is 22. Certainly going to hit the armor class of 13 on our Druid. Armor class doesn't change just because you're lying on the ground. Okay, so now that's done. It's a critical hit. I get to double the dice. Remember, don't double the modifier, just the dice. And let's see what we get. I get a 5 plus a 1. It's a grand total of 6 plus another 3 for my piercing damage. That's a grand total of 9. So it won't instantly kill the Druid. I would need to get something like 10. If I had scored 10 on my attack, that would have instantly killed the Druid right then and there. But because it's a critical hit, you're still going to get 2 failures. Which means the Druid is dead today. That was a short video. Now I don't have to do any of the other spells. I'm only kidding. I'm going to do the other spells. We will continue on, don't you worry. So I'm going to just move this. I just need to shuffle around myself just so that I can see whereabouts the screen is going to show the dice rolling. There we go. That's where we want to be. Okay, so let's go back and start demonstrating how something like Druidcraft would work. So something like Druidcraft is an action to cast. It's a cantrip, so you can cast it as many times as you like. It also means that it allows you to do a number of different things, which is why picking up Druidcraft as a Druid is a smart idea. It allows you to predict the weather for the next 24 hours by generating some sort of, I guess, like a hologram, a picture, maybe a little snow flurry or a little sunshine. So it presents it and shows you what the weather is likely to be for the next 24 hours. You can make a flower bloom or a pod seed open up, or something sort of develop. If a growing plant of some kind will bloom, blossom, that sort of stuff. You can also create a harmless sensory effect. It will affect a 5-foot square or cube, so that space right there. It can be a sound, it can be a sight, it can be a smell, anything like that. It's up to you how creative you are with using your Druidcraft in this way. You can also light or snuff out a candle, a torch, or a small campfire if you wanted to. So that's all available to you, and you can cast Druidcraft as many times as you like. So there's our cantrips. Let's talk about Thunderwave, because to be honest, I think Thunderwave is one of the coolest spells out there recently it saved our party from near and certain doom. So let's talk about Thunderwave. Now Thunderwave works really well if you have a group to affect. It is an action to cast. It's a level 1 spell. It will use up a slot, so you will have fewer spells if you cast this. It has a range of self, and it has a 15-foot cube effect area that starts from wherever you are positioned. It is a Constitution saving throw, DC 13 for this character, for any creature that is in that area that might be affected. And you will do damage whether they save or they fail the save. So if they make the save, there's going to be damage, and if they fail the save, there's going to be damage. So it's good. So it's a good spell to cast. It works well when there are a group of creatures. So I'm going to put out a few different creatures that you can see here, and we'll sort of demonstrate sort of what it would look like. So something like that. We can move ourselves around as best we can. Now you can cast the Thunderwave from any corner that the miniature is on. You do not include yourself in Thunderwave. You're not trying to blow yourself up, okay? You're just trying to affect any other creatures that are within range. So you can position it from any point as long as it's near the miniature. It's from the self. So what we're going to do, since it's a 15-foot cube, is try and affect as many creatures as we possibly can, starting here in this corner here and going. Now I'm using a wet erase marker on this map. This is not a dry erase, it's not a permanent marker for those of you who are freaking out. Okay, so corner and then dotted line, dot, dot, dot. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, and we'll get that one in there as well. And include this area here up to here, that's 15. Sorry, I'm trying to draw marks and not doing a very good job of it. It's a bit hard for me to see where I'm doing things. You'll be able to see a bit easy once my hand's out of the way, right? Here we go. So I could position any square, as I said, from where the miniature is. If you're using Theatre of the Mind, try to be nice as a Dungeon Master with regard to this. Okay, so I can affect 3 of them, but I can't affect the 4th Kenku. Does that make sense? So we're going to make some saving throws for the Kenku and see what happens to them. Something horrible, I hope. Anyway, I'm going to just mark down some extra boxes so that you can see how that's going to work. And our Kenku have 13 hit points, so just an extra box. Yep, Druid's back on full hit points. They're still alive. We'll just roll back. Whoops, that's a really small box. How am I supposed to put a number on there? That's not going to work out at all. Okay, since there's 3 of them that can be affected, we'll have 3 boxes. Each box will have 13 hit points in it, like so. Ta-da! So that's to represent each of our Kenku for this encounter. So we're going to make a saving throw. As I said, it is a Constitution saving throw. So the Kenku's Constitution saving throw is a flat roll. Basically, whatever I roll on a 20-sided dice, because their modifier is 0. So grab a 20-sided dice, make your roll. First one here, I rolled a 9. So that's not enough. You need to get equal to or greater than the DC of 13 for this particular Druid. So it's affected by the full effect of the spell. Awesome news. This is great. So how many damage dice do you use for Thunderwave? Would you believe it? It's quite a few. And it's a big dice too. It's 2 8-sided dice. Yes, that's right, 2 8-sided dice. And I get to push the creature 10 feet back if it fails the save. If it succeeds on the save, it's going to take half damage and it won't be pushed. But this one is going to get pushed and take all the damage. So I roll a 6 and a 6. That's 12 damage. So we'll put that over there so you can see those numbers. That's how much damage it does, full damage. So first one is now on 1 hit point. So 13 less 12. It's on 1 hit point. Pretty effective. We'll do the second one here. Constitution saving throw. I rolled a 20. It's a flat roll, so I succeeded, but it's still going to take damage. It just won't get pushed. This creature should be pushed back 10 feet from the spell because it got affected by the full effect. This one won't get pushed, but it will take half damage. So half of 12 is 6. So we will just rub that out, like so. 6, 12, 7 hit points left. Whoops, wrong pen. Let's use the big marker so you can see it. Just like so. Easy peasies. Last one. So we'll roll for this one. This one didn't get pushed. It only took half damage, remember? Okay, so this one saves as well. Don't add anything to it. So it doesn't get pushed and it will take half damage. So the same thing as before. 13 less 6 is 7. So as you can see, it's a really effective spell. When you need it to do something, it does a lot of damage, and even if they save, they're still going to take quite a chunk of damage. So it's a good spell to use, particularly with a large area. Okay, so that's Thunderwave and how it works. What about something like Fairy Fire? Now, Fairy Fire is an action to cast. It is a level 1 spell, so it will use up a slot. It has a range of 60 feet. It will encompass a 20-foot cube area. It has a duration of concentration up to 1 minute, so you need to make sure you have somebody in front of you when you cast the spell. Otherwise, you're going to probably find yourself taking damage and having to make concentration checks. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to rub out some of the... Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I do have water with me, which is good, so I'll just move these miniatures out of the way and I will demonstrate how that works as well. And we'll do a Fairy Fire for those of you who are wondering how that works. La da da da. It's another hanky that's going blue. Every time I blow my nose gets bluer. From the ink, from the pen. I'm only kidding, it doesn't. It's been fine. Just put it through the wash, she's all good. There we go. I think that's roughly, yes. Okay, all right. Now, we want some friends along with us if we're going to use something like Fairy Fire. Because the idea of using Fairy Fire is to get the whole group benefiting from the fact that Fairy Fire will illuminate a creature and make it easier to hit. That's really what we're after. Just make sure I dry that area completely. Okay. All right, so chuck that there. And we'll get some friends in to help back up our Druid. So how about something like a Barbarian and maybe Drits, putting Drits here, and we can grab like a Cleric, because why not, and we'll move them around a little bit so they can sort of back up the front line, and there's probably some other characters there who might benefit also from our Druid casting that spell. Okay, so there's a bunch of characters. Now we're going to place our miniatures on the board, and in such a way, what you want to do is try to include as many possible miniatures as you possibly can. And I'm just going to move some of those around so you can't affect absolutely every single one of them. It might be possible still to do that though. Oh, can I move them further back? No, I'll just move that one there and that one there. Okay, that'll sort of make it a bit more difficult to actually include too many. Okay, so the idea is you select as many miniatures as you possibly can. So cast the spell Fairy Fire. It's a range of 60 feet, so we're definitely within range. I'll put a marker just to represent where our Druid is. This is where our Druid is, so you don't get confused by all the other miniatures. It's got the 6-sided dice beside it, for those of you who are a bit confused. So I'm going to use our blue marker again, and we're going to trace out a 20-foot cube to try to include as many of the Kenku as possible in the spell. Now, if we trace, we don't need to trace from the miniature. Remember, it's got a 60-foot range. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, Fred, hang on, is that 60 foot from the center of the cube, or from the side of the cube that's closest to the character, or from the back end of the cube? Honestly, who cares? If you're a dungeon master, just have it 60 feet from wherever one part of the cube is. You can go and make this, you know, difficult for players if you really want to, but it's a level 1 spell. It's not going to be hugely useful at really high levels of play anyway, because most of the time high level characters will hit even if they have advantage or don't have advantage. It doesn't make any difference because their attack modifiers are so large. Okay, So let's include as many as we possibly can. I think the best use of the spell will include probably, we can go these 3 or these 3. I don't think we can get all 4. So we'll make a mark here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Include here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. 20 feet. And down to here. And so we're going to exclude one of the Kenku aren't going to be included in the battle, unfortunately. Well, in the spell. And I'll just do a dotted line so that you can see it. Well, hopefully you can. Sorry, Drips, almost knocked you over. And it's like so. And another dotted line along here. Alright, so hopefully you can make out the dotted line. If you can't, let me know. Now, each one that is included in that cube is affected by the spell. And so we're going to make an attempt to see if they can save from that spell. So what I want you to do is grab your 20-sided dice, and we're going to make a save for each one. Starting off with the first one, remember it's a dexterity saving throw, DC 13. So rolling for the first one here. So I rolled a 17. We're going to add our dexterity modifier, which is a +3. So it's a 20. So we get equal to or greater than the DC required. So this particular Kenku is not affected by the spell. We'll roll for this one here. I rolled a 14, add 3 to that. That's a 17, which is equal to or greater than the DC required. So this Kenku is not affected either. Come on, dice. Roll low. Make it easy for me. Ignore that. So I roll a dice that's, now it's not going to roll low at all. There, we'll take that. That's 8 plus 3, so I can at least demonstrate with one of them, surely. 8 plus 3 comes to a grand total of 11. 11 is less than the DC required of 13. So this particular Kenku will get affected by the spell. So we'll put a little triangle beside this one. That means essentially any attacks made against that character will have advantage. I'll put 2 20-sided dice, that'll make it a bit easier to understand. So if any of these characters here attack that Kenku, they get advantage if they're making attacks with ranged weapons or a melee weapon, or if they're using a spell attack of some kind. It doesn't matter whether it's a ranged spell attack or a melee spell attack. The only time it's not really going to have any sort of effect is if you are using an effect that requires a saving throw. There's no benefit generated from that. It's only for attack rolls. So creatures affected by Fairy Fire have advantage on them from their enemies. That's essentially it. So that means you roll 2 dice and you take the highest result and you add your attack modifier. So for any of you who are confused, you would roll 2 dice and you take the highest result and add your attack modifier. Okay? Alright, so that's Fairy Fire. Last spell on the list for today that we need to talk about, and that is something that is called Healing Word. I've done spells on Healing Word. You're welcome to go and check them out, but I will cover it again since I normally cover most things here in these videos. How does that work? Well, essentially it means that I can heal somebody as a bonus action, still have an action to cast another spell if I want to, but it has to be a cantrip because I'm casting a spell that's a bonus action, or I can make an attack with my action. So it's really helpful for the Druid, Cleric, and your Bard would have access to it. Any character that can cast Healing Word, it's a great spell to have. It has a range of 60 feet, so I don't have to touch the creature to affect them, and they're going to regain a 4-sided dice +3, which is the spell casting modifier for my Druid, okay, which is Wisdom. So I can add that to the dice roll. So that's what we're going to do. So what happens, we get into a battle and the Barbarian goes down, which I find highly unlikely because it very rarely happens. Battling away, and instead of moving up, maybe you can't do so because the Kenku have moved into a position to sort of block. It can't get to our Barbarian. We'll move them a little bit further away. Okay? Looks a little bit like this, and maybe you just can't get there. you're too far away to do that. So instead of worrying about that, you don't have to. We're going to use the range of Healing Word, which is 60 feet. We can try to heal that character on our turn as a bonus action. Roll a 4-sided dice. I rolled a 2. Add 2 to the 3 or spellcasting modifier, which is 5. Which means now the Barbarian who was on 0 hit points because they went down and were unconscious but not dead has now got 5 hit points from Healing Word. Now, if they're dead, Healing Word won't do diddly squat. It won't help you in the slightest. But if the character's not dead, it will affect them. It does not mean the character gets to stand up straight away. That's up to the player to decide when it's their turn to have their turn. They are still prone, but just not unconscious or dying. And that's it. That's pretty much everything I have on the Druid for today. And I hope that I have covered it to everybody's satisfaction, considering the disaster last week turned into. And I would definitely classify it as a disaster. But if you enjoyed this video, please share and like the video. If you like this sort of content, I usually do it every week. I do some sort of combat tutorial, so consider subscribing, hitting the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos, which does happen. If you want to support my channel, you supported my channel by watching this video, and any of the AdSense revenue I get from you watching it helps me, helps out the channel. I have many more videos you can go and check out if you want to, and I will get AdSense revenue from them as well, provided you don't skip the ads. If it's a really long ad, I would skip it for sure. Anyway, if you want to continue supporting me in other ways, I don't do Patreon, but I do have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon where you buy stuff online, I get a small commission, you pay exactly the same price, and that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else. Now, this is your opportunity to say hi to me, to say Merry Christmas, and I say Merry Christmas to all of you too. For those of you who are thinking that I have forgotten that, I have not. So Merry Christmas, say hi, ask questions, give feedback. Maybe I did something wrong, maybe I missed something, maybe I need to cover something you want to talk about, we will do that. You can use the live chat right now, so don't run away, put something in the live chat. If you're not part of the live chat, that's what the comments section's all about. You can put your feedback down there, so you can type it in there. I usually respond to most things, so by all means, type away, don't feel I will ignore you. That doesn't usually happen. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.